guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to be talking about books that I read between books that I read in September and October while I was in a reading slump. I'm gonna tier rank them into a reading slump tier ranking. So because I was going through a reading slump in those 2 months, I thought it would be best to display these books via a tier ranking list. So let's have a look at the tiers. So it starts with I slumped even more. As you can tell, the book was just so bad. I was already in a reading slump, so I went in a deeper of a reading slump. The next one is was okay, because I didn't go in a reading slump, but also wasn't enough to get me out of a reading slump. It was okay. Next is I might actually read. Like, the book is bringing me to the surface of the reading slump. It's like, it was actually good and I might want to read more books. Coming close to the top is do I smell new books? Do I need to explain more of what this tier is? It just means I am there. I'm almost there. It gives me the urge to go out and buy new books, and not just for a hobby, but actually to buy them and then read them. And then finally, the last one is I'm a reader again. I am a free bird. I have hatched from my egg. I'm about to fly. But when I fly, I'm not gonna fall down. I'm actually gonna spread my wings and fly because I'm a reader again. I'm gonna read normally like a normal person, like I used to. So now that you know my tier rankings, let's get started. So the first book I read in September was better than the movies. I'm not gonna spend too much time harping about what the book is about. It's about this girl and guy who have grown up together and don't like each other. But then they fake date for a purpose, for a reason I have actually forgotten now. And that's what the book is about. I found this book to be cute, but I also found it to be a bit cheesy because I was in the depths of my reading slump. And I really tried hard to like this book, but I realized that once I was closing the book and putting it down, it was very hard for me to go back to the book and open it again to read. It was as if I didn't care. And there are some parts of this book that people absolutely love, like the mention of songs playing in the background. So whenever she's in a unique situation, she'll have a mental song playing in her mind. And there's a mention of that throughout the book. These songs playing at different moments, whether in her head or just physically playing in the background. And so many people found that cute. For some reason, I was over it. Do not judge my judging this book right now because I was in the water. I was deep in the ocean of this slump. And so whenever that part would come, I would be like, this is so cheesy and I don't know if I want to read more of this. But I did it. I finished the book and I conquered, and I marked it on Goodreads. I was so happy about that. I did, however, love their banter between Wes and I don't know her name. What was her name? The fact that they're fighting over a parking spot and this all is like, that's the deal, blah, blah, blah. I love that. And there are small moments in this book which are so cute and cozy. One of my favorite parts was like a fireplace situation that happens in the book. It was just set up so well, and it was like, I wanna jump out of my house and I wanna go sit by a fireplace. I wanna do that. So I really like the small moments like that. I gave this book a 3 star. I think it's not bad. First of all, I'd never give any books 2 stars, so otherwise I feel like I might have given it a 2 star, but it wasn't that bad. I just was not feeling it. I was not in it while reading this book. So if I am truly and honestly putting this in a category over here, honestly, I'm leaning towards I slumped even more and was okay, because I'm not sure if I want to disgrace it like that and put it in I slumped even more. Let me have a thought. Honestly, after I finished that book, I did not feel great, and I actually did feel like I slumped even hard. So unfortunately, I think I'm gonna drag that into I slumped even hard or even more. I don't know. It was something about it. It did not hit me in the feels. The next book I read was The Housemaid's Secret, and this was the book I was very excited for, so it was a great start. This is basically the second part to the Housemaid series, and in this, our main character Millie now lives in a house, if I'm not wrong. Again, I have forgotten. I always forget what these books are about after I read them. If I remember correctly, she is now living on her own. She's still doing that housemaid business, but then she's working in this new house, and then behind the door, there's a lady, or the wife of the man she's working for, and she is bloody, and now she wants to help her. I was really intrigued to read this book because I really wanted to know where this book was gonna go, because the first one was a banger. I loved it. And then I also heard everyone's reviews of the second 2 books, and I was like, I don't know if I want to read that. I mean, I do want to read that, but I don't know if I'm gonna like it. Unfortunately, it is true, as the other people say, it wasn't the best. I think because the first book was just so good, we all are just comparing it to the first one. And I don't really remember the specifics of what happened, but I do remember, just like the first book, it was very gory, it was very bloody, lots of visuals, and just like how I was traumatized by the first book, the second book traumatized me a little bit less, but I was still traumatized equally. But the book was definitely gripping. However, I did feel it was dragging on a little too much. It just kept going. It would never end. And I feel like the problems that were happening, I did not care that much, because in the first book, the problem really is centered around Millie herself. And so you're like rooting for her and you're like, oh my God, okay, save yourself, girl. But in the second one, because I think she is on the quest to save someone else, I didn't really care, because I don't really care about this woman so much, because like already, like I don't like the man she's living with, and I don't know. It was just a whole thing. I was not rooting for that family. And also in the first book you have a child and you have a loving mother, so it's like, okay, I want them to be free. But in this one it's like, I don't know. And so the story just kept going on and on. People were running, people were chasing people, and did not like that. As for putting it in a ranking, I think this actually, because it was a gripping book, it did get me back onto reading. So I'm gonna put this in I might actually read. So because the first book, better than the movies, was actually very long, I only read 2 books in October. Also reading slump, because the first book was just not great for me. I just read 2 books. Next comes the next month, which is October. And the first book I read in October was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So this is a fantasy book, and Addie LaRue basically makes a deal with the dark because her parents want her to marry this guy and she doesn't want to get married. She doesn't want to be owned by someone. She is thinking ahead of her time. So she makes a deal with the dark that allows her to be invisible, so nobody ever remembers her. So she can live her life, but nobody will ever remember who she is. However, one day, this one guy, Henry, remembers her. And so now she's like, So for this book, I was actually a bit hesitant to continue reading after the first few pages, only because it's a very thick book. And also because the writing was very different because it was fantasy book. Each fantasy book has its own kind of language and style, and this one was very different from like Fourth Wing or like Once Upon a Broken Heart. A bit more complicated and literary, and so I was like, I don't know if I want to read that in a reading slump. So I read a few pages and then I left it, and I was like, oh, I don't know, like is the book calling me? It actually did call me, just a little bit. So I picked it up and I continued reading, and once the main part of the story actually started, it was very interesting. Once I started liking it, I realized even though it was a thick book, that factor didn't really discourage me from reading it. There was this one part though that I started to dislike the characters and just where the story was going towards the end. A love triangle. You see, I have read Once Upon a Broken Heart, and Evangeline similarly makes a deal with Jax, and then, you know, stuff happens, and then there's a romance action between the Fate and Evangeline. But I was just like, I do not want that to happen in this, because, you know, Jax, he has his own charm. The darkness though, I was like, please do not. And even though certain things that were happening, certain things that were being said, I was like, this really sounds like something's going on between the darkness. And I was like, do not. Because I really wanted this darkness to just be the darkness and not really be related to Addie. On a personal level, I just thought it would be more interesting for me to read. And that is the part where I started getting the ick from Addie as well. The ending was very like, it happened like that, and it was dark, like darkness. It was dark. I did not love the ending. Overall, it was a great read. And you know what? I just saw something. Even though I said all of that about this book, I gave this book a 5-star. I mean, I still love the book. It was just those parts that I just was not a fan of. So for this, I would say, what do I want to put this in? Oh my god, is it even recording? I think it's definitely not, and I slumped even more. Not it was okay. I think maybe I could put it in either Do I Smell New Books or I Might Actually Read. I'm not sure. Even though I did give it a 5-star, I'm going to put it in I Might Actually Read, because I've marinated with the book enough. That is how I feel towards this book. Next book I read was Happily Never After. It's basically about this guy who breaks up a girl's wedding because he's hired to do so, because she found her husband cheating on her, and now she wants to bring the wedding in front of everyone, but also not take the blame for it. She needs someone to do it for her. So this guy breaks up her wedding, and then after a few months, the breaker of the wedding and our main girl character just see each other somewhere, and they're like, oh my god, you're the one who broke up my wedding. And then that is where a wonderful friendship emerges, as well as, of course, you know, love. This book had been on my TBR for so long. I added it on Goodreads like 3 months prior to when I actually started reading this book, and I immediately loved it since page 1. First of all, I love the story. I love it's a bit different than just like, you know, the normal romances I've read. So I love that story of them, like, you know, breaking weddings, and then like the girl eventually joins in on the business and they're both breaking weddings together. And I also love their banter. First of all, their relationship starts as a friendship, and I love that. I love their banter. The whole time it's just like elite and so funny. I actually laughed out loud. And the one thing I really absolutely loved about this was after the fact that they are falling for each other and the romance starts, they do not leave their friendship levels. Their friendship is still head on, it's strong, and so is their banter. So just because they are feeling things for each other, they don't necessarily stop being mean to each other, which I love. And I gave this book a 5-star. I don't even have to check on the app to see how much I gave. And with this one, it would definitely be Do I Smell New Books. This book, first of all, was the perfect length for someone who is in a reading slump. And because it was so funny, I was like, I want to laugh more. I don't want to think about my depressing life right now. That really made it for me like, oh my god, I'm actually so close to being out of my reading slump. Next, we have 2 books left. So next I read Rebecca. It's basically about a girl who works for an older woman as a companion, and she no longer wants to work for her. On their latest companion trip, a man comes along to the hotel they're staying at. And so our main character and this man, Maxime, hit up a conversation, and then our main character decides, instead of traveling to the next location with her old lady, she wants to marry the guy. So they get married, and now they are living at Maxime's house. However, Maxime did have a wife in the past, and now once she is in his house, nobody can seem to forget that wife, and she is constantly reminded of her. And now her husband basically doesn't love her anymore as he claimed to love her before, and now she lives a sad life. This book had the absolute most beautiful writing. I thought it would be hard for me to grasp the words and everything because this was a classic book. You know, I was mid-reading slump. It was shockingly easy to read and understand what was happening in this book, and the plot twists I did not see coming at all. I literally closed my book and went, what? And one thing that I found really interesting was seeing our main character stay constant throughout the whole book. You know how characters grow and then change and they come as a new being at the end of the book. This character, she stayed the same. But that is, she stayed the same on the outside. On the inside, you really go through with her, you know, the thoughts that she's having. Because sometimes when Maxime does treat her badly, she is thinking, wait a second, I don't think this is normal. And I would rather be loved by a man. And then she has these kind of rebellious thoughts. She just represses them back down. And then I was like, girl, why are you doing that? And so because you read into her thoughts so much, there came a point where I was just sympathizing with her the whole time. Even though she was making bad decisions, I was like, you know what? You do that, girl. You do that. I did not expect this book to affect me that much. The way this book ends, like I had to Google the meaning of the ending because it's left so open-ended. But as the book ends, it ends in a way that you have to close the book and reread the pages from the beginning because the story is literally connected that way. It is a circle. And so I haven't done that yet because I really think I need to sit down, read the ending, and then go back to the first few pages to read it and really understand what happened. It made me think that deep, and I can't believe it. I give it a 5 star. And this one I would definitely put in I'm a reader again, because first of all, being a classic, I didn't expect to love it that much and give it a 5 star. And so I thought if a classic can make me do that, I think I am done with my reading slump and I'm a reader again, which I was, because this book was very thick. I think it was 500 plus pages, and I did feel quite achieved, as if I just read like a library reading for my uni or something. I never did that, but with this I really felt like I just completed a major task and I felt very accomplished. And the last book I read was The Silent Patient. So basically our main character Alicia had shot her husband in the head 5 times, and now she is in the, what do you call it, a mental institution. And our main character is a psychotherapist, forgot his name. He is basically very intrigued by Alicia's case and he wants to solve it. And by solve it, I mean he wants to help her recover from this because he thinks she shot her husband for a reason. Loved the book, literally from page 1 till page whatever, the ending, perfect. First of all, I found the topic of the book very intriguing. Also the cover, I've mentioned it before, I will mention it again. There were lots of dark scenes in this. Beware, watch, read the trigger warnings and all of that. I physically had to put down the book, go to bed, and then read the next day because it was very dark. And it was so dark, it actually crept into my dreams. I had nightmares. I'd put the trauma of this book on the same par as The Housemaid. I think they both were very traumatizing in both ways, but I think this one was just a notch more. And the ending? Absolutely did not see the book going there. I thought, oh, I'm gonna be a little detective and I'm gonna solve riddle and I'm gonna figure out what happened. I did not figure it out. When I read what I read, I was like, oh, no wonder. This book was so gripping, definitely 11 out of 10. And even though our main character has killed her husband, shot him, 5 times, let me clarify, I still sympathized with her. I really wanted her to get better. And I really thought, you know what, I agreed with the guy. She probably did it for a reason. He was probably a bad person. And this book, no doubt at all. First of all, also being the last book I read in October, and also because it was the best book, I gave it a 5 star, and I will definitely be putting this in I'm a reader again. So those were all the books that I read in September and October. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books. And honestly, most of the books here are great, except Better Than the Movies. Maybe someday I might go back and reread Better Than the Movies when I'm not in a reading slump, just because I know many people loved it. People do like it. It is cheesy, it is great, it is romance, it is all of that. I want to try and experience that, and I can also officially in flesh live to testify that I am out of the reading slump. I have already read I think 2 books this month so far, and it's November right now. I saw so many people getting into a reading slump at the time that I was in a reading slump, and so I thought, is this like the reading slump season? What is happening? But I also think because everyone is just so into their reading goals at the start of the year, that's where we spend all our energy, and then towards the end we're like a bit exhausted by reading, I think. So my reading slump did go on for 1.5 months, I guess, but I'm so glad it's over. I do not wish it upon anyone, and I'm just so back being on my silly little reading life. I cannot thank myself enough because I did this to myself. I brought myself out of this, and if you did the same, be proud of yourself. tap yourself on the back. Tap, pat yourself. You know what I mean. T-A-P-P-A-T, doesn't matter. Let me shut this down. So that was it for my video. If you were in a reading slump in these 2 months, just like me, please let me know in the comments so I get to know how many people were in a reading slump with me, so we can be one big family. And let me know if you're out of the reading. So that was it for my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Thumbs up if you liked it. And make sure to follow me on all my social media. I also post on YouTube Shorts on a daily basis. So, you know, like, I watch it. Make sure to subscribe so you're tuned to all the videos I post every single week. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!
Everybody, welcome to my channel. Today's video, I will be tier listing the books I read this month and last month. So, please enjoy the video as I set up the laptop.